right. Episode number... Let me look it up. Actually, I think it's number 9. We broke one up into 2. I gotta check myself, right? Episode number 9. Look at that.
I don't have to fact check you yet.
Yeah, perfect. Good. All right, here we go. I have with me Sam and his wife Alise. They both have some hardware. They wore their medals here. So Sam and Alise Willoughby, pro BMX. Are you guys pro or I don't know how it works?
Yeah. Pro, you can go either way.
I guess, because I'm just seeing the Olympics. Yeah, the Olympics, it kind of throws me.
Started out as kids on bikes and then eventually became a job.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's everyone's goal and everyone's dream, right?
Career bike riders, there we go.
I would have loved to have been that. I felt like BMX biking was definitely bigger in our time. Or my time, growing up. Like
80s, 90s, it was going really well.
That was what I did.
In Southern California.
Oh, it did.
75, I think. 74.
Yeah.
I had a VFR.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
It was chrome. It wasn't a big deal.
It was even like when we started late 90s. Well, obviously I was in Australia.
Yeah.
It was like the participation was really high.
Right.
And it seems like it's getting back there a bit now, which is good to see.
Yeah.
This year's actually, kids back on bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
with the
cool.
whole shutdown thing, bikes have been selling like crazy, and you actually we take the dog for a walk and you see kids riding bikes again. It's good.
It's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
I agree. Since the pandemic has kicked off, I've never seen so many people walking around my neighborhood or doing things like that, and it's awesome. It's great to see because that's how we grew up. I literally would leave in the morning and be like, Mom, I'll be back at dark.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And we were on our bikes and we were off and we were doing bad stuff probably. Getting into trouble.
There's all those memes where it's like, this is how you used to find your friends with before phones, and it's all the bikes laying in front of somebody's house. Things have changed.
Exactly. I know. All right, so tell the people a little bit about your guys' self. So give them a little bit of background.
Yeah, so, I grew up in Australia and just, rode bikes for fun and eventually started racing with my brother at around age 6 and played Aussie rules footy and just was very active, really fond memories of my childhood. Growing up at home with my brother and neighborhood kids and always on bikes, always doing something. And
destroying his parents' backyard.
Yeah, we dug up the backyard, made a BMX track, and pretty much from when I was about 8 years old, it was my dream to come to America and race BMX professionally. So I decided pretty young. I remember telling Mum at like age 8, flicking through a magazine and seeing pictures of the American racing, and it just looked bigger and brighter and better. And I was like, I want to go to America and race, and I told her that night, actually, I'm not getting a job. I'm going to America to race BMX. And she probably just rolled her eyes. But
your pa told you proved him wrong.
Yeah, my grandpa tells me every time I talk to him, because he used to pick me up from school, and he's, what are you going to do for work, Sam? Like, he's a hard work and like owned a transport business. And very much like by age 14, he was like, you guys need to get jobs. And and I was like, I'm going to race BMX. And he was like, that's not a job, Sam.
Proved you wrong.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
So then at age 17, I moved over here to chase the dream, so to speak. And I mean, a lot of stuff in between that with meeting Alise and
Won a silver medal, a couple world championships. Don't leave those little details out. It's not like you're just a guy who...
He's a GOAT contender. We'll say it.
Right, yeah. I mean, I had obviously like the story of how I met Sam and Alise is actually kind of funny. And then I had to do my own research on you guys, and I'm like, okay, who are, Alise comes over here. She's like, well, my husband's in a wheelchair. He's in the car. He can't help move this huge piece of equipment. I was like, okay. She's like, he's not a bum. I'm like, no.
He's like, don't tell them that. I'm like, tell them I can't help. Like, I'm not just lazy.
Well, we pulled up and you and a few of your mates were there and like all strong looking dudes. I'm sitting in the driver's seat and I'm like, tell them like that I'm in a wheelchair. Like they're gonna be like, what is wrong with this douchebag? Sitting in his car watching his wife try to move this piece of equipment. And we didn't even have my chair with me, so I couldn't have even got out.
Right, they got out in your wheelchair and showed it. It was like, this guy's just in his car. He's in his car. He's gonna make his work.
Get your dumb gym equipment. Let's go.
Right. So that was actually really funny. Alise comes in. She's wearing like an Olympic T-shirt. and looking fit. I'm like, okay, I'm like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I'm just in the Olympics, no big deal. On the Olympic bike team. Oh, I'm like, okay. So, and then, I go back and,
I had no idea we were going to meet either because I met through somebody else. And connection.
Basically, I was selling a piece of equipment, gym equipment through somebody else, just helping me out. Not so, for no reason other than, just being careful.
Don't want the whole San Diego CrossFit community showing up.
Right. And so, Sam and Alise come over and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. I'm like, yeah, is this kind of cool? I'm like, hey, nobody really, it was a West Side belt squat. I was getting rid of it. It was too big for my garage and I wanted something else, and so we put it out there, and it's not a normal piece of equipment, gym equipment that normal people are like, oh, I really want a belt squat for my house, and so it was just I'm like, what do you do?
Why do you want this?
Why do you want this piece of equipment?
Why do they have it? Funny meeting.
Yeah, really funny story. So and then I go back and I have to do my Googling. I'm reading about Sam. He's like one of the greatest BMX bikers of all time. And then Alise obviously won a silver medal in the Olympics as well, and going for another,
Yeah, trying to go for one better with Sam's help coaching me now. So,
no big deal.
Come full circle, I guess.
We've got an extra year off our sleeves now.
Exactly. How's that been?
Yeah, it's been it's interesting. We were ready for a big year. Obviously, 2020 is shaping up. We started the year down in Australia with some World Cups, and we were meant to host the World Championships in the U.S. In May, and then that would be our last race before Tokyo. And so it was just shaping up to be a really good year. Liked where we were racing and competing. And then obviously everything just came to a quick halt after it started a really good year. And it was tough. It's not, it doesn't change anything. You still train, you're still working hard, but I guess just the adrenaline of everything and getting so geared up and ready to go. We work in these 4-year cycles, so you've been planning, you're in you've started that last phase of training for the big show, and it's like, okay, are we going to have an Olympics? Really? You don't know. They ended up moving it a year. Yeah. But at first it was very unknown, what's going to happen. And I think even still to date, there's still some question about what could happen. But learn to kind of just enjoy the quiet time, and we never really get a chance to just be at home in the routine without traveling and competing. So just trying to make the most of it. And once you got over that first swallowing, okay, it's changing. It's been good. We've enjoyed being home, routine, and just, I guess, trying to make it better than it was. Do things you couldn't do. Right. Make most of the opportunity, even though it's obviously not what you hope for. But make the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a crazy year for everyone.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I couldn't imagine having a 4-year workup and then literally, what was it, 3 months, 2 months prior to?
It was 4 months.
So it was in March when they made the call, it was probably May. Yeah. So basically 2 to 3 months before she was supposed to race. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having working up to something that you've been training for 4 years and then 3 months out being nah, we're just kidding. We're gonna push it back another year.
Yeah, and that's what's hard. It's not like it really changed what you want to do, but it's a tough thing to swallow. That okay.
Are they doing anything different for the qualifiers? Do you have to re-qualify or anything like that?
That's still
up in the air?
Changing for everybody, and that's where for me, I'm kind of in a pretty good position because I've done well leading into all of this, so I'm pretty solid, but I'm still not guaranteed anything because the qualifying's still ongoing technically.
Gotcha.
So it's a little up in the air, but I'm in a good position, whereas I really don't envy all the people that maybe with the trials events or, just maybe aren't as sure about their spot within the team. I think it's really hard for people in that position.
Man.
And the people choosing.
Yeah.
So,
nuts.
Selection.
Well, I'm excited to watch you now. That's for sure.
That'd be good.
It's gonna be. I'm excited. I think I've watched the BMX a little bit. I watch all sports.
Yeah.
I love sports in general.
We're the same. Yeah.
And so, but I don't think I've ever really watched too much BMXing. But I grew up being on bikes and stuff like that. But
it's changed a lot in the last sort of 10, 20 years really, since it became an Olympic discipline, and just the whole framework of the sport, like dropping off of a big start hill now, and it's a professional sport like any other. And
When did it become an Olympic sport?
2008 was the first year.
First year. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we were both too young that year because you had to be 19. We were
In
what,
cycling,
18?
we were 17.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And how long have you guys known each other? Or when did you guys meet?
That year.
That year?
2008.
Oh, it's okay.
2008.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well, okay.
Let's hear the story. Yeah, let's hear the story.
Story that he always jokes that I'd probably fact check him because it'll forever be the argument about how we actually.
I was like a creepy fan of Alise. That would be
So
messages.
when he said he read those magazines and wanted to come race in America, I'm one of those American kids in the magazine. You know?
Okay.
So he's chosen at
like messaging her on MySpace and stuff.
MySpace. Now we're dating ourselves. Okay,
Yeah.
MySpace.
And
That
so
was
my
my
version of the story is I was messaging her since like 2005 probably, and just like fan, and thought she was hot and whatever else you do when you're 15.
Right.
And then in 2008 the World Championships were in China, and it was both our first years as junior elite. So that's like the category before you turn professional sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And we happened to be like the USA team and the Australian team were in the same hotel, and no one really knew who I was at that point, and I ended up winning that race, won the World Championship.
Okay.
So my version of the story is I became good enough for her to talk to.
But by the MySpace message, we have an ongoing debate about a comma. So
because it's like tradition to swap jerseys in BMX, like with other countries and stuff. So we
back in 2006, we'd had a mutual friend because I wanted an Australian jersey, he wanted an American one. A mutual friend that was like, "Hey, I know somebody, like you can swap." So that was really when we first met, was in 2006, but never swapped jerseys that year. But then in 2008, I said that I want a piece of the jersey, champ, and he thinks I want a piece of the jersey, champ.
She wanted a piece of the champ.
No, commas are critical in this argument.
Punctuation.
Yeah.
And we can't,
punctuation.
we can't get back into our MySpaces.
No, we can't remember a password.
Right. Is that even? I wonder if they're even still like you can still actually
The
pull that thing
website
up.
comes up, but we can't get in.
Like we're telling our people around us, "Oh, this was Alise's MySpace song," and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, oh, we're
That
getting
is
old.
amazing.
So anyway, that's how
gosh.
we met in 2008.
Okay.
And then it was kind of coincidence that year was like I was 17, turning 17, and basically I won the World Championship, and then kind of told mum and dad like I want to go to America now, and they're like, all right, we'll save up enough money and get a plane ticket, and I think they thought I was kind of going to do a race and would come home, and ended up coming over here and won a race, and then got a sponsor and been here.
And somehow
ever
in
since.
that we kept in touch from China, obviously where we met, and he was coming over a few months later. So somehow I convinced my parents to let a 17-year-old boy come to Minnesota and to
I was
train.
like living at their house.
I was just gonna ask, like, where did you live when you
She
first
was
came
going
here?
to high school. I'd be at home with her mom.
Oh, what a story! That's
Yeah.
amazing.
You started in California.
I was kind of
couchsurfing.
just house to house, and
Just off of people like other
the
riders.
plan. The plan was I came in end of September, and there was 3 races between through October, and then the last one the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan was end of November I go home, and that was kind of like my American stint.
Okay.
And it ended up going well. I won the race in November, which is like the biggest race of the year here, and that, I guess, caught the eye of the industry a bit, and ended up getting a sponsor, and then
Came back a few months later.
So I went home for Christmas and come back and never left.
Yeah, no big deal.
Sorry, Mom. Mom, I should say.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So going into a sport like BMX, like I don't know anything. Like as a kid, or what before it was an Olympic sport, what would there were still like worlds and stuff like that.
So
it just wasn't in the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like World Championship, National Championship, State Championship, district champions,
Yeah,
all
and
those
there's
little
the UCI World Championships, which UCI recognizes, like all the cycling disciplines.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
under that as well.
But like for me, growing up in Australia, the dream was to win the USA BMX Pro title.
Okay.
So it's basically a series that runs over here with USA BMX from January through to the last weekend in November, which is like the Grands. That's like the big race, and you accumulate points, and then the last race is double points, and that's like as a BMX kid growing up, that was like that's like the prestigious thing that you want to win. So
That's where it started.
That's where it
like
starts,
BMX racing's
Gotcha.
original sanctions.
so that was like for me as a kid, it was never about Olympics. Like I loved the Olympics, but BMX wasn't in the Olympics.
Right.
And
Yeah.
football wasn't in the Olympics, which was my other sport I loved, and so it was just about I wanted to be USA BMX champion.
So, but you played Australian football.
Yeah, Australian
So
football.
not
Yeah.
football.
Not
not soccer.
soccer.
Not soccer. Not football.
Not-
Australian
right,
football.
exactly.
Aussie
Which is
rules.
like kind of rugby, kind of football-ish.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the
grand
rules are
finals-
much the same. They're kind of this, kind of that.
I don't know how to explain it either.
Yeah. I played rugby for a few years.
Yeah.
I love rugby. I think rugby's a phenomenal sport. But I remember watching when I was getting into rugby, watching a lot of the Australian
Yeah.
football too.
Yeah.
Because it was similar. It was just a
Similar,
little,
yeah.
still a little different though.
Yeah.
And I didn't even understand rugby as I played it.
Okay.
I remember people being like, "Kick for touch." I'm like, "What the fuck? What is touch?" You know, they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Like,
What
out
do
of
you mean I
bounds?
tried? I made it.
Yeah. I didn't try.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. And so what, like, I guess, when did you decide, like, hey, BMX is it?
Pretty early. Like I said that thing to my mom when I was 8,
Yeah.
and then probably around 15, I was like, I need to get to America and have a go at this thing, and it was really just my dream to not, like, I knew it wasn't a sport where you're gonna make millions of dollars or anything like that,
Right.
but it was like, I just didn't want to work a real job, to be honest. Like,
Right.
I just wanted to do
Yeah,
something I was really competitive,
Yeah.
and I loved the individual aspect of BMX.
Okay.
So that's probably what drew me away from footy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just driven to, like, I just want to be able to, buy a house, get a head start on life, and
Yeah.
whilst doing something that I'm passionate about, that I
Right.
can compete at and try to beat the guy next to me every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. That's awesome. How about, like, did you ever do any of the freestyle stuff? Like, where you're doing, like, flips?
No, I never got into it at all.
Just the racing.
Yeah, just right. It was just, for me, it was just competition. Like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be raced next to someone, like,
Right.
beat someone.
And beat
Like,
someone.
yeah.
Exactly. I get it. Hey,
And I didn't
get
want
it.
that in, like, a judge's hands or anything. I just wanted it to be like first guy across the lane.
Right. It's easy. Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's subjective and not subjective.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think subjective sports are cool. I can, like, well, now with, the X Games and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
fun.
But
Yeah.
you're right. It's not a freaking, hey,
Yeah.
he scored more points than they scored more points than we did, or he penned him, or,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, exactly.
a straight up
Just
objective,
yeah.
like, get across the line
And I think
before
the
everyone
thing,
else.
like, when you get into sport, it's like, it can seem like the 100-meter sprint, for example, it's like the gun goes off, first guy across the line. It seems so simple, but the more and more you go into it, it's like you can just break it down so much. And I think I still am addicted to that. That's why I coach, of just that,
Yeah.
like, trying to find these edges that you can't even justify, or you really don't even know what you're searching for half the time. You
Right.
just have this vision in your head, and
Yeah.
and
I can
yeah.
make it better.
Yeah, I can make
Yeah.
it better, and,
Right,
and
the-
the
the-
thrill of trial and error, and
You're looking for 1%.
Exactly.
When you're at the elite level, like you guys are, winning world titles and Olympic medals, all you're looking to do is be 1% better than
Yeah.
those people, because exactly you're in a different class.
Yeah.
Right. And exactly now you're fine tuning.
yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
And you can go down the wrong rabbit hole, and then you
Yeah.
try to come out and find a better way, and
Right.
it's just a never-ending process. And
It really is. It's trial and error.
once you raise the bar, then everyone else raises the bar, and you got to raise it again.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It just
Yeah.
gets crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pushing the human body, and then you're looking for recovery tools.
Yep.
And how can I recover faster so I can train more, and if I can
Yep.
train more, I'm going to be better.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the mindset. No, I agree, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how is it coaching your wife?
Yeah.
Your wife. Not coaching your wife.
It's, yeah. it sounds worse than it is. Like, we have a really good, I mean, we trained together for so many years, or it's kind of doing around each other. So,
Right.
And she's obviously a very talented athlete, so it's that
I'd say
side
so.
of it helps. And I'm just really passionate about the process of it all. Like, I just love it. And I'm very competitive. I love competition, like I've said. And then after my injury, it was like I just needed something to fuel that. I needed something to fuel my competitive side. And the coaching is, fortunately, I guess I happen to have some skills in that area, and she's really good. So it's just a fun combo, and I think we're both. It was new. It almost like revived, I think, her career in a sense, because, I mean, it was after my accident. I think it caught a lot of people off guard. Like, there'd never really been an accident like that in our sport.
And just to
really?
recap, like, we didn't even talk about.
Yeah,
what
we'll go.
happened.
This is going to be a good segue
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, like, there'd never really been an accident of that magnitude in our sport. Like, not at the top level anyway.
Right.
So I was kind of at the top of my career, and then had that accident. And I think it caught a lot of people off guard. And obviously, Alise had been through a lot with a lot of different injuries, and losing her mum to cancer a few years prior, and just she'd been through a lot. And then my injury on top of that, and I think she was at a point where she was like, is this worth it? Like,
Right.
didn't. And then I think it was like one day in the hospital, we were kind of just laying there, and she was like, it just doesn't seem important anymore. Like, it doesn't, racing BMX, like, what does that mean anymore? Like, here we are, you're paralyzed in a bed, and like, for what? Like, and instantly that just clicked with me. I was like, no, like, this is important. Like, you're good at it, you're passionate about it. Like, we need, as humans, I think we need an outlet to express ourselves, and I needed something as well. Like, I still need an outlet to express myself and challenge myself intellectually, competitively, all those things. And so, yeah, I think that day it was like, all right, let's just do it together. Like, I'll train you. You go in.
And it was interesting, like, because we were packed up after his injury, and we were living in like Denver area at the hospital there. And so, I mean, I'm sleeping at the hospital, and like training is, by the wayside,
Right,
like,
of course.
and like my prior coach at the time, like we'd done the Olympics. Sam's accident happened 3-4 weeks after. So I hadn't really been training or anything since the Olympics, and so then we were in hospitals. And so I think trying to have someone else help you that's not in that scenario, that's not going to understand what your day-to-day really is, wasn't going to work anyway. So it was such a natural thing to have Sam, who's there, sees what I even have any time, access, or capability to do. Like, that was a natural segue.
Right.
And so we were able to make the most out of what, honestly, little I really did.
Yeah.
I didn't do much, but got ready, and then having success at the race in the end of November, it was like, okay, we can do this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a natural transition, I think.
And I think for me, like, after my injury, like, it just clicked with me right away. Like, the thing I never missed, like, riding BMX from the get-go. I think because my injury was pretty severe, and
Right.
you face so many other emotions, and you lose so much more than just being able to ride the bike. Like, that was the least of my worries at that point.
Yeah.
But the thing that clicked with me right away was, like, what I liked about BMX, and it was just competition. And so then that was like, I was just ready to get back on the horse, like, right away. I was like, I need some, like, obviously I was competing with my body to try to get better, but a lot of that in many ways was out of my control at that point. And my biggest, a lot of my concern was like Alise. I mean, we were 25 and going through this life-changing thing, and like, she needed an outlet as well. And I needed to make sure that she knew it was okay to express that outlet, that it wasn't like, because I think originally she felt a bit like, how can I go and do this after it's taken that from you? And it's like, nah, it didn't, like, that just happened. Like, it wasn't like BMX didn't take
like
that
a
from
weird
me. It was a
jealousy
freak.
feeling. You don't want to like rub it in,
Yeah.
almost like,
Yeah.
look what I can go do, and you can't. It took this from you.
Right.
But it
You
was
know, it just felt weird.
Yeah, I think but I never looked at it like that.
let's go into the injury. I feel like we're talking so much about it now. It's like around it. Let's talk about it. Yeah, right. Like, I mean, it's like people are gonna be like, well, what injury is it? You know, like, what are we talking about here?
I broke my hand.
Yeah. I stubbed my finger and I just didn't want to ride anymore.
So 4 weeks after the Olympics in Rio, I was 2016. Yeah. Just a training day out at our local track in Chula Vista, and was doing a routine warm up and going through what we call a rhythm section, a bunch of little jumps in a row. And part of my warm up was always like I'd go through on my back wheel, and that was like signified to me like I was balanced and felt good on the bike and ready to go, and just did this warm up literally every session for 6 years, and just overcorrected and ended up flipping off the back of my bike and went up into the air, basically into half a backflip, and came down on top of my head and broke my neck at C567. And I remember, like, when the accident was happening, like, I remember everything. Thankfully I didn't get a concussion or any head injuries, but also I remember everything.
Yeah.
So I remember going off the jump and was like starting to flip and thinking, like, I've been here a million times. Like, it's not unusual to flip off the back of your bike. Like, growing up as a kid, it was a every week occurrence. You know, we call it looping out. And I remember being in that position, just thinking, all right, this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna be winded. And by the time I came to after hitting the ground, I realized I wasn't winded. Like, I fully had my breath, and that didn't really register with me. And then the next memory or thought that I had was like, I can't feel my legs, and it just felt like my legs were like way off in the distance. And there was
none of it was like you blacked out. You just it's just like shock.
I'm sure like all this would have happened in seconds, but it's obviously going slower in your mind.
Yeah.
Another rider came up. It was like a local practice day at the track. Another rider came up, and she was, I just remember screaming like, I can't feel my legs. And she then just called for help, and some parents and stuff come down. And I didn't really know anything about spinal cord injury at that point. I obviously knew of like people being paralyzed and that kind of thing. I'd been around it with friends in motocross, but didn't really know the details of it, and you know how it happens, or and so I didn't know I'd broken my neck. I didn't know I'd broken my back. I didn't really have any pain, and so I just laid still. And eventually some parents come down, and luckily one of them was an EMT, and he was very good at stabilizing me and kept me very still. And he started running through all these checks, like started at my feet, and he was kind of tapping up my body, like, can you move your feet? No. And tapping up my legs, can you feel this? No. And I remember he got his hand to my chest, and I could see his hand like right there on my chest, and he was like, can you feel this? And I was like, no. But I could see his hand was like right there, just below my chin, but it felt like he was touching like a meter away from my chest. Like, my best way I can describe it is, felt like I was in a wetsuit full of water.
I guess you okay.
And so he started running these checks down my arms then, and the first time he got to my hands, like, I really gingerly like squeezed his hand, and then he went back down and did the check again. The second time he came back up and he did my hands, and I couldn't squeeze his hand. And at that point, basically the lights were out from my neck down. And I'd say that's when, like, real panic sort of set in for me. At that point, I was, just motionless on the BMX track, and waited for paramedics to arrive. And when they got there, they didn't really say much. Like, they knew the magnitude of the injury, and it was just kind of strapped me on a backboard, and they put me in the back of an ambulance. And they said, I remember hearing them talking, and they were like, it's too bumpy to drive out of here, like, it's too risky. So they called for a life flight. And when I was laying in the back of the ambulance waiting for the helicopter to arrive, they held a phone up to my ear, and that was Alise, because at the time Alise was in Minnesota doing a charity event after her success in Rio, which I was supposed to do with her. And my Rio adventure didn't go so well, and I was just it was probably my biggest disappointment of my career at that point. Like I went into Rio, really good shape and won every race all day, got to the final, top qualifier, got to the bottom of the start hill in first and made a mistake on the first jump and ended up finishing 6th or something. And that was a tough pill to swallow, and it was something that I kind of just immediately and after the race, I just covered it up as best I could because Alise had just won a silver medal and try to go and celebrate with her and just like suck it up. And but then after that, I just didn't deal with it well. It was like my mentality was I just need to go to the next race and win, make up for Rio. And I just kind of like buried my head in the sand, like started going to every race. Like I was at a race 3 weeks after the Olympic Games trying to
win. The exact same mistake.
Yeah, so and I made the same mistake again. Just trying, like, it was just a point in my career, like that was the one thing that I hadn't got, and it seems selfish to even say that, like, oh, I hadn't got a gold medal, like, but
just silver in London,
but I get it, but when you're a competitor, a silver, I took second at the 2011 CrossFit Games, and I remember sitting in the back and thinking in my head, like, I want to take this medal and I want to throw it in the trash can because I'm a loser. You know? And that obviously looking back on it, like, wow, how stupid are you? Like, you just took second. You accomplished something. But it wasn't the goal that you wanted.
But it wasn't the goal.
It wasn't the goal what you set out for.
And that's how it feels when you're in a race. And we both talk about that moment of crossing the line, and it's almost like, like you're chomping at the bit, like I almost had it, and you want more, but then. You go on the podium, you start realizing the magnitude of things, but it's tough to swallow that. Like, even though it's an accomplishment. Like you said.
Exactly. It takes time as an athlete to understand that, because when you're young and hungry and like you're out there to win, that's it. And second place isn't winning.
Right. And at that point, like I'd been fortunate enough to go through my whole career. I had no injuries, like never broke a bone, anything. And in 2016, I tore my ACL like 5 weeks before the Olympic Games. 5 months before the Olympic Games.
Oh, wow.
And
this is 2012?
2016.
Oh, 2016, okay.
And fortunately, I could just, obviously I didn't have time to get surgery, but cycling being there's no lateral movement really. I was able to put a brace on and just race. And it really didn't affect me at all on the bike. Like I was in great physical shape. And, but after the race, it was like, I failed. I knew my knee needed to be repaired. I was 25, and it was like contracts, everything was up, and it was like I was just in probably just a bad place mentally, and I'm not a good loser at the best of times, and I was just like, my mentality was kind of just like a gambler. Like I just gonna fix this loss by winning the next one.
Right. I mean, I think the greats at anything aren't good losers. No. Right? Because I think that's what makes them great. 9 times out of 10 is because they hate losing so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, having an ACL, it's crazy to hear that, right? That you don't have an ACL, and you're still doing really well. You still went to the Olympic Games and took 6th. Yeah. Without an ACL.
And he was definitely the favorite in best shape he's ever been. I think that's what hurt too. Is probably because of that you took your training to another level as far as looking at the details and how to make things better and work with what you had.
Right. And you gain a lot of knowledge now as a coach.
Yeah, I think like my stubbornness when I was an athlete helps me a lot now with coaching, because at times I did a lot of things my own way, which wasn't good at times, and I was very like bull at the gate and like my way or the highway. But I learned a lot, and it's given me a wealth of knowledge now and an understanding of how to relate to different people. And with Alise's stuff, just being able to understand, the process of things and be able to look at things objectively. And because a lot of that, I did a lot of trial and error, and it probably cost me a lot of success at times. But and ultimately, I think that was probably, the thing that made me great throughout my whole career is ultimately the thing that took me out.
Right.
But I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, man, it's awesome to hear. You're sitting there telling me, you don't even miss BMX biking, and you were at the top of your game when you got injured. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to swallow. I remember, in 2011, so I was, I took second, and then the next year I dislocated my knee completely. So I tore my ACL, PCL, MCL, and meniscus. And I just remember being like, you know, I'm not done. I'm not, you know, I'm not. It's not over for me.
Yep.
It could be worse. You know. So, yeah, it's you know, and now you're finding your next step with helping others.
So I guess back to the injury, but that's ultimately I think what led to the accident in some respects of just I was mentally, physically burnt and probably should have been resting somewhere, but I
should have got the ACL fixed.
Yeah, probably should have been getting anyway.
You got 3 other ligaments.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that then I was anyway, I think I was saying that at that point I was in the back of the ambulance and they held the phone up and that was Alise, and I just remember just at that point just feeling a lot of guilt at that point, really, just because I felt I didn't know what my injury was at that point, but I knew it wasn't good.
Right.
And the furthest thing from my mind at that point was BMX, but the first thing on my mind was like, Alise just got a phone call that I'm paralyzed. My mum and dad in Australia and my brother just got a phone call saying Sam's paralyzed, and I knew that they were going to, move heaven and hell to be on the next flight and be over here, and then they were going to have to sit on a plane for 20 hours just knowing that I'm paralyzed.
Right.
And I just felt a lot of guilt because I just felt that I'd let myself kind of get to that point, and then now we were all going to have to deal with it. And so then that was the next point for me was the helicopter flight to Hillcrest. What is it? Scripps.
Oh, Scripps Ranch.
Scripps Mercy. And
2 weeks there.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, just being rushed through the hospital ward there on a stretcher thing, and still not really having any understanding of what my injury was. And at that point, even if I wanted to try to move stuff, I was just strapped to a backboard, like there was no chance of moving anything. And
no family or support to help you through any of it.
It was just me at
wow.
a hospital. And I remember we were racing through the ward, and there was a female nurse that was there, and she obviously knew the magnitude of my injury, and she put her hand on mine as we were kind of racing through the ward, and she had a tear in her eye, and I said, "Am I dying?" And she said, "We don't know yet. We don't know the magnitude of your injury yet. You've sustained a severe neck injury, and we need to get you stabilized as soon as possible." And whether or not that was like an exaggeration or at the time, like when you don't get that, when you're strapped to a backboard motionless and you don't get a yes or no answer to that question, it's pretty daunting time. And so then the next bit I was shoved into MRI machine and went through all of that, pulled out, put into behind a little curtain, and just laying there motionless by myself and still no idea what my injury was. And eventually a surgeon came around, and he didn't really introduce himself or anything. He just said, "Close your eyes." And he said, "What am I doing?" And I said, "You're squeezing my right big toe." And he said, "Okay, we need to go now." And I was like, "Go where?" He's like, "Well, you've broken your neck at C5, 6, 7. C6 is a burst fracture. It's crushing your spinal cord. And if we don't relieve that pressure, now your chances of recovery are 0. And at that point, like, I'd never even been under the knife, like no surgeries or anything.
Yeah. And
my initial thought was like, well, I need to like convey with some people, like,
I need to talk to somebody. Hold on, doc. Like you're about to do some crazy shit. I need to talk to somebody.
Really weird like now thinking back, it's just a weird headspace I was in, like laying there. I just had no idea. And
what's so crazy is that the fact that this injury was so severe, but you're so aware.
So aware and no pain. Like,
right.
And I just...
And the fact that you asked him, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, and then he's like, we need to go now. And then my next question was like, do you know... Oh, I said, what's the risk? And he said, well, we're going to go and pull these bone fragments out of your spinal cord. And if we hit any higher than C6, like, then your condition could be permanent. If we do more damage, your condition could be permanent. And at this point, I'm thinking, like, I'm definitely going to recover. Like, this is a bad injury, but I'm definitely going to recover.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, well, do you know what you're doing? And he's like,
what's your name again? Let me see your credentials, bro. You know, like,
and he's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. We need to go now. And then we just went to surgery, and it's like,
man, that's
I
with
didn't-
nobody there. No, like you're still in Minnesota.
I was down on the plane at that
probably
point.
on a plane.
Yeah.
I hadn't spoke
Like,
to my
hadn't just-
parents. Hadn't spoke
nothing,
to-
and so you're literally going under the knife, and you have like, you know, you're gonna wake up and
I thought I was going to surgery to get better. Like,
Yeah.
Like I was going to wake up from surgery, and they're going to be like, it went great. Like, it's going to be 6 months.
yeah, be back on the bike,
It's
man.
so
You're
naive
rocking.
to think like that now. Like,
Yeah,
but
right.
That's
Right.
what I thought. And I woke up from surgery, and he's like, it went great. And I was like, I'm still paralyzed. Like,
Yeah.
that was my first thought, was like, I'm still paralyzed. Like,
Yeah.
So it was a 6-hour surgery that went through the front of my neck and fused me from C5 to 7. And by the time I'd woke up from the anesthesia and stuff, Alise was there at that point. And I remember when I sort of came to, by that, like, she was next to me holding my hand, and the first thing I said to her was, you're not marrying me, you're not marrying a vegetable.
Because we were engaged.
We were
the year
engaged to be
prior.
married in April. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was September. And yeah, it was just coming out of that surgery was when it kind of just really, that was the first time someone used the term permanent paralysis to us. And I remember just crying and yeah, just telling her that you're not marrying me. And I didn't know how to deal with that situation at that point. I had no idea what lied ahead.
Right. I
And
mean, I don't think anybody does,
no.
right? And that's the type of scenario.
You know, and his parents are still on a
Yeah.
plane from Australia. He
But-
was
You
know,
just
I mean, that's-
overwhelmed. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my first thought was like, you're not caring for me. Like, you're 25 years old. Like, you need to go and live your life. Like, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, I felt like I was a vegetable. And
So at that point, I guess I just, you know, I don't know the whole story. So were you able to use your, even 'cause obviously now you can use your upper body.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to use it then or no?
not right away.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he
So-
still like presents.
Yeah, so I present
Yeah.
like I have full function, I guess, but like I can't, like my left hand, I'm very thankful to have gotten to the point where I'm at, but like
Yeah.
my left hand I don't have full, like I wouldn't be able to open a bottle probably with my left hand.
Okay.
And
And
like
it's
core, no
like
core
no
function.
core stability. My triceps took probably at least 4 months to
Yeah.
have function.
Triceps.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were.
Now you're
Not
you're
working
looking
at all.
good now though. You're jacked, man. Those shoulders and biceps. Obviously, you're putting in the work.
So it.
Not in that belt squat.
Hey, you can use that belt squat for some curls, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You use that thing for. I use so I have the Rogue one now, and it just takes up less space, and I use it for everything.
For rows and stuff. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So early on, I'm considered a quadriplegic still, but have obviously improved my upper body a lot. And yeah.
What's
you wouldn't
that-
even recognize him, like hospital photos. Like,
Yeah.
he was so much skinnier.
It probably took I'd say it took a good year to get to a point. I mean, I fought everything from depression to all of that, and
Yeah.
it took a good year, or even more than at least a year to the point where I was like comfortable looking at myself in the mirror,
Yeah.
going places, doing things. Yeah.
Right. Yes. I mean.
And to even get independent, that was the biggest thing. I mean, it took a while.
And so, the road to recovery, like what, like, do you still go and deal with like PTs or specialists? I'm guessing.
So I, up until this whole COVID thing, I would do therapy at home, like specific to my injury, a few times a week. I did it 6 days a week for 2 years straight.
Plus additional home sessions. Of
course.
All of
Just-
us, yeah.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, to go back early on, it was like, for me, the only way I seen out of it was to walk again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I didn't walk, I was useless, essentially. Like, I just didn't see any other life outside of that. And all the things, when I went to rehab in Colorado after 2 weeks in hospital, I thought I was going there to, like, learn to walk.
Right.
And then when I got there, it was like, okay, you're a Asia B incomplete, which basically means like you have no function below your level of injury. A little bit of sensation, but no function. So basically the job is to teach you how to live in a wheelchair.
Right.
And I fought that for a long time. Like, no, I don't want to be in a wheelchair. You know, I don't want to get wheeled into the back of that van, and I don't want to use this modality to put my shoe on and, you know, have special knives and forks and all this stuff that was kind of being shown to us. And to the point where I just felt like I got to a point where I felt I'm just like this object now, and it's everyone's job around me to keep me alive. And I felt like the only way to avoid all that was to walk. Like if I walked, then I didn't have to worry about learning to transfer.
Right.
If I walked, I didn't have to worry about learning to get dressed laying down. And
He would not go. There was a class, it was like wheelchair function class, and he wouldn't go. Like we would try so hard. We were like, you need to go learn how to open doors. Not, don't feel good. Not going. Play hooky. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He avoided it.
it was a weird, because they had all these like machines and with like electric stim and like walking machines and stuff, and I just wanted to be on them. Like I thought like that's what I need to be learning to do, but I wasn't allowed to because of my medical diagnosis, I guess.
Yeah, it's all like everyone there's at a different level, and
Yeah.
it's like there's always somebody worse, somebody better, somebody, you know, like in different positions, and it's pretty hard probably to swallow that and look at that.
So we were in hospital there for 3 months, and when we left, so when I first went there, I was like, yeah, this is great, we're gonna learn to walk, and like I'm going there to, I can train, I can be dedicated, like I can fix myself if they give me the tools.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't really that. And then it was like desperate to get out of there, but at the same time I was terrified to come home, because it was like there was this life at home that we'd built for ourselves that it wasn't going to be the same. You know, like we lived in a 2-story house. At that point I couldn't even get myself into bed. You know, people lifting me into bed. I couldn't get in my shower. People lifting me into the shower, helping me put my shoes on, dress myself. It was just awful.
Yeah.
So when we got home, it was like I just buried my head in the sand and was just rehab. Like my brother had flown over to live with us and help with his family, so Alise could kind of, you know, have her break a bit and do some training and racing still. And I just buried my head in the sand and just did therapy 2 times a day. And when I wasn't doing therapy, I'd lay in bed and visualize and try to make a toe move, give me some sign that like these legs are gonna walk again, and there might be a chance, you know.
Yeah.
That was what I felt was my only way out at that point. And so then it was probably about 9 months in. I'm a big NASCAR fan.
Okay.
There was a NASCAR race in Fontana, and my brother was with us at the time, and I hadn't left the house at that point other than like a doctor's appointment. And he was like, I was skinny. I'm pretty white, but I was really white.
Yeah.
And he was like, you need to get out of the house. Like there's life to live. Like you can keep chasing this goal, but like there's life to live. You know, he was really good about, you know, he had a friend at home that had a back injury, and he was always showing me photos like, look at him, like he's living, like you can still be what you want to be, or be. I guess he taught me to just respect myself again, because I had no respect for myself at that point. Just talked down on myself, didn't like who I seen in the mirror, didn't like what I was, wouldn't go to dinner. I was embarrassed to be out with Alise because I felt like everyone just looked at us like, oh, why is she with him? And like just real shallow kind of thoughts, but I just didn't have any confidence in myself. And it was a fast change from like alpha athlete that thinks my shit don't stink to like to that. And so anyway, that NASCAR race was on, and my brother was like, we're going. I was like, I'm not going there, like no way, crowd of people, like no. And so anyway, he basically threw me in the car and literally drove up to Fontana, and a friend of ours that's in the industry, he got some tickets and organized this like big VIP.
Sorry. Hey, I need you to stop talking. Fortnite's important.
That's
Sorry.
it. Yeah.
So he organized this big like meet and greet like with all the stars, you know, Jimmy Johnson, Richard Petty, all this stuff, and which I was pretty insecure about because people would introduce me as like, oh, this is Sam. He's an Olympic silver medalist in BMX. And I could tell they're looking at me like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And
What am I missing here?
yeah. So we did that whole thing, and then the guy that got us the tickets, he's like, at 10 o'clock you need to go to this hall, a number 13 hauler, and meet this guy. His name's Booty Barker, and he's the crew chief for the number 13 car. And he said he's in a wheelchair, and I need you to meet him. I've known him for 30 years. He's a great guy. And at that point, I was like, I didn't want to meet anyone in a wheelchair because I was like, that's not what I want to be. Like, they don't have anything, as shallow as it sounds, like they don't have anything to tell me. Like, I don't want that to be me.
Right.
So anyway, we did it out of respect. We went to the 13 hauler to meet Booty.
Yeah.
And here's this guy, he comes rolling out the back of the trailer, like Southern guy, and he's, you know, pretty well built in the chair. And he's like, hey Sam, how you going? Like, just life of the party, super bubbly, like great guy. And he's like, come up here. So Matt pushes me up in the back of his hauler, and he's like climbing the walls, like pulling down exhaust manifolds, showing us all the stuff, pulling up engine data, just like talking to us about everything. And then he just stopped and he's like, so how long you been injured for? And I was like 8 months. And he's like, you look great, brother. What are you going to do now? And I was like,
Hell yeah.
I didn't know how to answer that because I didn't know what I was going to do now. And my brother was like, oh, well, you know, Sam, he really wants to walk at his wedding at the end of the year, so he's working hard on rehab, like he wants to walk again. And Booty's like, that's great, then what? And I didn't know how to answer that either. And we all kind of just froze, like my brother, our friend that was with us, we just froze. And my brother was like, so when did you, like, stop rehab and just kind of, like, you know, move on? And he's like, rehab? I didn't do no rehab. He's like, they said you can dress yourself, you can leave the hospital. He's like, I did that in 4 weeks, got the hell out of there, got an engineering degree, and here I am. He's like, you got to get on with it, brother.
Yeah.
And to that point, I hadn't had anyone that, like, it was just doctors and that kind of thing at that point, and it was all like, you know, you're going to need a modality for this, traveling's going to be really hard. Like, everything had, like, rules and regulations of how, limits of how, like, life was going to work now.
Right.
And then meeting him, it was like, how do you do all this? Like, and he's like, you got to get strong, brother. He's like, you're looking a little weak. You do pull-ups? I was like, no. Yeah. And he asked me, do I go to the gym? And I was like, well, I used to love the gym, but no, not now. And he's like, you got to get in the gym, brother. You need to get strong again. You know, you're going to have to pull yourself up, throw yourself around again. And he's telling us how he just, when he travels, he stays in a normal hotel. He's like, I get my ass in the bathtub. He's like, here's the deal. You can do whatever you want. You know, he's like, I got a bed. It's high as shit. I fight it every day to get in that thing. But he's like,
it seems like such a thing.
Right,
It's so
like,
funny.
it's like he just did everything opposite. Like,
Yeah.
and he was like, he had an F350 truck, and he just
No big
pulls himself in there, and it was just like
climbs up. Probably.
everything was possible to him.
Yeah.
And he was strong as shit. He's telling me he benches like 315, and he was the exact same injury as me.
Oh wow.
Like 30 years prior.
Yeah.
And he looked at my brother and he said, here's the deal. Him and I are the same as you. We're just going to have to drag ourselves around a little more. And I left there that day and it changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And it seems like simple looking back, but it just, we left there. We went back to the hotel that night because we stayed up in Fontana, and me and Matt were just so motivated. We're like, let's try to get you in the bathtub. Let's try and like learn to do all this stuff. Like, and I was motivated to become independent. I was motivated to just become the best version of myself after that. And
Yeah.
I started to respect myself. I'd seen someone that was doing it, that, you know, he was married, he lived by himself. The more he talked, like, I didn't even see the wheelchair in the end. It was
Yeah.
just like, I just seen this successful guy. And
Right.
so I left there that day pretty motivated to still work at the ultimate goal of, like, I wanted to stand at our wedding, and as that was something that Alise and I had talked about from day one, and
It's something that you wanted to do for, like, just what you pictured, you know?
Yeah,
His
for
day,
sure.
it's what he always pictured, and he just not one to fall through on a promise. He
Right.
wanted to stick to it. And,
Yeah.
But I'd say you definitely at that point just regained a lot of, like you said, respect for himself, but like all those things that made him a great athlete, he's like found a new outlet of how he can reapply those things.
Yeah. So when we left that day, it was like, that was the new mission, to become independent again, and I was motivated to become independent again, like, and I had to start pretty small, like brushing my teeth and, you know, getting up in the morning and trying to dress myself. And like the first time I dressed myself, it took 35 minutes, and when I was done, I just went back to sleep because I was exhausted.
Winning! You know what I mean? Like, fuck yeah, that's right. That's awesome. I mean, like, to think about it, just overcoming that had to feel so good.
And it's the weirdest thing, because it felt, and I still do things now that, like, it's such a weird injury, because I lived that life of, like, pushing my body to limits of that it shouldn't really go to, and just everything, like, the simplest things were just so easy.
Right.
To then, in the blink of an eye, like, tying my shoelace again was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and I was so pumped the first time, like, that I was able to tie it, and then just things like reaching in, like, you get yourself into the pantry, and, like, you're able to scoot to the edge of your chair and get something down from a high shelf, and it's like, fuck yeah, I did that. Like,
it's true.
And it's the weirdest thing to, like, go back on things that you just never thought twice about, that now, and it's hard to tell people, like, when it was happening, like when I was learning to live again,
Yeah.
like the time I got dressed, I remember coming down and I was like 20, like I took a shower and got dressed, and I was like, a record, I did it in 20 minutes. I remember coming down and I was like, did it in 20 minutes. And everyone was like, that's awesome, Sam. Like, they're obviously like happy, but like,
Yeah, just
I
like
could tell their excitement wasn't the same as mine.
Well, it's hard to, exactly. It's perspective, right?
Mhm.
It's we all have these. We all take things for granted.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, now you're just gaining this perspective of how these little small things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
Are huge.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, I remember, like, this is obviously such a different comparison to what you're talking about, but like after I had to get a second knee surgery a year and a half ago. And I literally hadn't been able to run for a year and a half, or a year or something like that. And I remember, like, literally the first time I got to go run on the, I started crying.
Yeah.
I was like this is crazy,
yeah.
you know? And I mean, it's just
Movement is
right,
a powerful
right,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like
Freedom.
when you feel like something's not there, something you get taken away, which you're talking about, even just like putting your clothes on and taking a shower and tying your shoes, like.
Yeah.
When you get it back,
Yeah.
you know, you just get this little touch of it. It's like, you're like, I'm going to cherish this forever.
Like when I was able to get to the point where I could get in my car and transfer in my car myself, pull my wheelchair across myself, and drive independently, it was like,
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like the freedom I didn't drive a car for 18 months.
Yeah.
And
Now he's back to waiting on me to get ready. So he's good at that.
You never know what she's doing back there.
Yeah.
so,
Oh, man, that's awesome.
yeah. And
One
it's-
that got me was, think about when you pump gas in your car.
Right.
That one
Yeah.
got me, like,
Yeah.
if you're not in the right, the one time you
So
said.
a couple of, like the first time I went to the gas station, I pulled up and I was like, all right, sweet. So I start unpacking my chair. I unpack because I have to pull it apart each time. So I pull it up. Well, it was already pulled apart. So I pull it out, build it up, get in the chair, come around. And my chair was too wide to get between the car and the curb. And I was like, back around, pack it up, get back in, go out, reverse, come back, unpack it, go back around.
I can imagine watching someone watching this. You know?
And it was like just these little things you used to just take for granted.
Yeah,
like,
man. They're just, you know.
But I think sport in a lot of ways gave me the ability to deal with this and be okay with it, because just I have to think about, like, if we go to a restaurant, I'm like, where's the toilet? Like, can I get to it?
Right, yeah.
And just
is it upstairs, downstairs?
Like, that
right.
organization.
Better not drink too much.
Yeah, right.
We get on a plane and it's like, all right, 4 hours, like, don't drink.
Yeah. I'm holding this bad boy.
Yeah. So just all those little things that I think in sport and you're an athlete, like, you plan and you have to be organized and planned and structured, and that's my life now, like, which I'm okay with because that's my personality as well.
Yeah.
But you just have to think of everything.
Yeah, and you're dealing with the situation at hand, right?
Yeah.
You've been dealt a set of cards now.
Yeah.
And there's two ways you could go about it, right? You could feel like, hey, why this happened to me, or I'm glad it didn't happen to someone else who couldn't handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a quote from Marcus Aurelius.
Yep.
One of my favorite. I remember reading that quote and I was just like, don't ever be sad that something happened to you, but be thankful that it happened to you and not someone who couldn't handle
And
it.
that you can handle it.
Yeah,
100%.
so it's such a awesome thing. It's an awesome thing to watch and
I'm
see.
one of the lucky ones that does have a wife that stuck by me, and that a family that was there 100%, and friends, and I've gained friends out of it. I've lost some, gained some. That's life. But
Right.
So I was in hospital with kids that didn't have insurance, didn't have a family around them, and it's scary. Like, they didn't have the mindset that I was fortunate enough to get out of sport as well, to deal with the what if,
Right.
to deal with the unknown. They didn't have that skill set, and they didn't have anyone around to nurture them through that. And so in that respect, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, man.
And I think that, like, it's just made him better coach as well. Like, the perspective shift on, like, yes, everything's important, but he can help anyone that he's coaching. Like, it's what you're doing is important. As long as you give 100% to that, it matters. But if you're not all in, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But just the perspective check of, like, it's okay that this didn't go to plan. We can shift this. We can do that. Like, it just, not that things don't matter, but you can shift the focus, adapt, and
Of course.
the perspective check's been
Yeah.
a big asset. I know for me, and when he helps coach with me, it makes everything. You never know. You're not entitled to anything. He says a lot, and that's very true with everything. You can't feel entitled to anything. You just gotta enjoy the process of hoping it works out and just trying.
For sure.
And that joy of the process.
The process. You always hear people who like, the people, they want to win the gold medals, but it's like, it's not, those moments aren't what it's all about.
No.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's always been the process getting to that end goal. The end goal's sweet. It tastes good.
Yeah.
But man, like, if you don't love it, if you don't enjoy it,
Yeah.
like, it's not going to be worth it.
I always say that,
Memories.
like, when I think back to world titles or even London Olympics, like, any success I've had, I don't even really remember the race, but I could tell you, like, day for day what the lead up was like, and like, I had this day at training, and then, on the 5 days, I remember that taper, and I thought I sucked. I didn't think I had it at all, and like, I've got 10 years of diaries of just everything written out, and it's 100%. You remember the process.
The process, man. It's all about the process, because the glory lasts it's such a short thing anyways.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the sport, it's the camaraderie, it's the relationships you build, it's the mental aspects that you get in and out of it, from the highs to the lows,
Yeah.
So I agree completely.
And that's, he says a lot, like, your gold medal, like, you say, I like, let the gold medal define me for a minute, like, and I got derailed. I was letting that define me, and now you're back to, your injury doesn't define you, the medal doesn't define you, and I think that message to the people he's helping is important. Like, that whatever, for me, hey, we're trying to win a gold medal too, but my life and my athletic career isn't defined by that.
For both of us, like, with what she went through with her mom, and then my injury, and going through all that so young, it was like, this time around, for these 4 years, it was like, fuck this, let's just chase this thing of her chasing a gold medal in Tokyo next year. But like, there's no fear of failure, because it's just like,
Right.
we've Like I
Yeah.
always say when she goes up there, like you're battle tested. Like this is fucking nothing. Like,
It's easy.
Different me
yeah.
to him.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a little different to you.
It's like easy.
But-
it's
no,
just-
I know it's not. It's the same. I know exactly what you mean. Though,
yeah,
right.
and it's just a fun win, lose or draw. Like it's just a fun journey. Like the journey that we're going on now of traveling the world together and trying to come up with a plan to ultimately make her better. And it's a fun process. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's the perspective. Now the perspective is shifted, right? I feel like I got that a lot in my early stages of CrossFit, where people were like, "Oh, like how do you, like when it gets really tough, what do you think
Yeah.
about?" And I'm like, "This isn't tough.
Yeah.
I exercise for a living.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
isn't hard.
100%.
Like I mean, this is me getting away from
Yeah.
the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I've never known how to answer that question when people are like, "Oh, you think about it. What'd you give up like as a kid?" And it's like,
Give up.
I don't know.
Sacrifice isn't really the right word, so
Right.
you enjoy it. you
Yeah.
know?
That's
And-
that's the thing I've always had to tell people too, is like this isn't a sacrifice.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to bars. I
Yeah.
don't want to get drunk.
Right.
I don't want to feel like crap every day.
Yeah.
I love going into the gym. I like feeling like crap because I worked out so hard.
Yep.
That
Yeah,
my
feel
body hurts.
accomplished
Yeah.
Right. I
doing
feel like I
that,
did
yeah.
something, but like I know when people use that word exactly sacrifice, I'm like, this isn't a
Yeah.
fucking sacrifice.
It's like-
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm not sacrificing anything. I would rather be here than there.
Yep.
No
No one held a gun to your head. And
No,
said,
exactly. Like I didn't sacrifice because
Yeah.
I didn't go get drunk and not do anything with my life.
Right.
And
Right.
just party.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's always a funny line to me too. Is like, oh, the sacrifice. It's like, sure, that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
And the perspective thing coming full circle. You asked at the start of this whole chat, how do you deal with the year delay? Well,
Yeah.
there's been worse things.
Yeah.
Everyone's dealt the hand right now, so you just try to play it the best you can.
Right.
And this whole journey has made it
Yeah.
feasible, I
Yeah.
guess, and more plausible to stay the course.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. But what couple more minutes, I guess. What like is there any like what are you doing right now to like help because you were saying you're helping other people. So are you coaching other people besides Alise?
Yeah, so I coach Alise, and then Alise's training partner, who's also Australian, who lives here in San Diego, Lauren Reynolds. Coach her, and then one of my childhood friends who I grew up went to Rio Olympics with. I'm coaching him now, Anthony
nice.
Dean.
Okay.
And another younger guy from Arizona, Cam Wood. So I
Nice.
got like a group of 4.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Which is good, and I like it at the top end, and just trying to win stuff at the moment. That's what
Yeah.
really fuels me.
Yeah, every
and they're
project
they-
challenges you different. Each
Yeah.
of us. So it's
And they're kind of somewhat hand selected, either friends or like Cam, for example. He's just a young kid. He's 18, and just seen a lot of myself in him at that age.
yeah.
We had a friend introduce us to
There's
him.
not too many 18-year-olds that I click with in this day and age.
Sorry, kids.
You're right. You're right. It is.
Um,
It's hard. It's hard to find that
I'm
kind
a
of.
bit of an old soul, so
Yeah.
yeah. But he's a good kid, and so that's been a fun little project.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. Are you kidding me? How many times have I said I don't want you to talk right now? Do I need to have you guys turn that off and go on there? Then be quiet.
They're not 18 yet.
Seriously. I don't ask for much. I ask for 1 hour. The rest of the time you can be as loud as you want.
Yeah.
Don't care.
No rules.
No rules. It really isn't in this house. Yeah, and that's awesome. So yeah, so you're training those people. Anything else going on right now?
So I like still getting in the gym a lot, so that's been like
Yeah.
my passion, just to try to rebuild myself, and that's been a fun process in many ways. Like the first time I went to the gym, my brother kind of dragged me there after we met Booty at Fontana, and we went to like an Anytime Fitness or something, and he like threw me on the bench, and I couldn't even balance on the bench. Like I couldn't tell where my proprioception was all gone, so I couldn't feel where my legs were,
Right.
or like I couldn't even tell like if my hips are in the center. I couldn't feel anything, and I could lift the barbell, but like I couldn't really grip it with my left hand, and then now which is 4 years later, have kind of just,
Well, 3 years. Since
3
the
years
gym
since going back to the
stuff,
gym. So it's just been like an ongoing process to try to, I just love exercising and challenging myself and pushing myself.
Before our
and-
wedding, you were a medium, and then you said after that he tossed all of his medium shirts on the ground in the closet, and he put up a story on his Instagram like Road to XL, and
I like
he's
it.
got a couple XLs now to fit the biceps.
I
So
know,
he's
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Heck yeah,
It's just
dude.
been like anything, it's just been an evolving thing. Like,
Right.
I went, just meathead lifting weights at the start, and then
Good times.
He often says, "I've got more. I have less working muscles than days in the week, so
yeah,
hard
it's hard to find what to do sometimes.
Right,
but
yeah.
and then just as I've improved over time, and like I've got to the point now where I can like grip a lat pull down with my right hand. I still have to use assist on my left.
Okay.
So it just changes over. I just keep chipping away at it to try to get to the point of, I don't know what point really. Just keep
Right.
working at it and
Never-ending goals.
process.
Yeah.
Right, the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
exactly.
Started doing a bit of cardio again, and so that's been good. Just that was a big, with my injury being so high, like I couldn't get my heart rate above 109.
Okay.
So now I'm at the point where it's pretty normal, gets up around 200. So that's good. So it's been,
That's up there.
it's just those
Yeah.
things like, I guess like once I met Booty, like I just stopped putting limits on things. I just try shit now and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't always work right away, and I've dropped some weights on myself and, slipped and done this and that. But yeah, I just try to, I don't really have end goal in mind. It's just
Yeah.
like, I'll try that, and see where we can get to,
Do you still keep in contact with him? Booty?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And
you're-
still chasing him on the bench press, but
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, he often gets asked about doing a para sport or like para weightlifting, but there's not a lot of classes. There's not a lot of need for like quadriplegic bench pressing. I don't think that's a big thing. So, but he always says, "I'm the second best quadriplegic weightlifter in the world."
No big deal.
He's
Big
number
deal.
one. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's good,
funny.
man. I love it.
Yeah.
And you guys are coffee people.
yes.
So, another.
That was the first venture
That was
for
the
him,
first venture.
Okay.
actually. After the
So it was
injury.
actually, I used the excuse that it was kind of good for my hands at the start because it's like
Dexterity.
dexterity.
I like
So-
it. I like where your head's at.
Yeah. So right after I got hurt, well, when we moved home, we bought a rocket machine and grinder and everything. And
Yeah.
I'd always been in, like, there's a big coffee culture in
Yeah,
Australia.
sure. It's huge in coffee, yeah.
So I'd always liked coffee, but never really like made it and that kind of, or got into that process of it, which is a very deep rabbit hole once you get
You can
into
go deep. You can go deep in the hole now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brewing methods,
So we got into that and yeah.
Now we have way too much coffee every day, but I'm spoiled. I've got my personal barista
That's
every
right,
morning,
that's
and now
right.
Emily met you, so we got our good dudes at the
Yeah.
house.
No big deal.
We're good,
you
yeah.
know? I know. It was the first thing. You guys like coffee? Here you go.
Yeah,
That was
Just
the
calling it off
funniest thing,
immediately.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta sell it. You gotta sell it, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad I got to meet you guys through some
Yeah.
weird random offer up purchase.
Yeah, whatever
know,
it was.
and, you guys taking the time to come on the show and share your story, man. It's been awesome. It's been awesome to get to know you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. It's been good.
All right. That's it.